Hey all, Steve from GuitarNiche here. On the bench we have a Larry Carlton 2022 S7. The topic of today's video is how to check guitar action and what to do about it. Let's say you got a new guitar and it's not playing right and you want to fix it up and maximize its playability for you. Now, before we get to that, I want to say thanks for watching. I really appreciate the eyeballs, new subscribers. Whatever nuggets of wisdom fall out of my head, you're welcome to them. Okay. Anyhow, as far as this particular instrument goes, I've done an assessment. The nut is pretty square. It's boned and it's a really nice material, but it's cut too high. The bridge is also sitting a bit too high. And the relief is actually not too bad. So we're going to address these things in turn. These are our three main components of maximizing a setup of any kind. In terms of action, once they are equalized or in harmony, you'll have the best playing instrument for you. Now, before we proceed, one thing I want to mention is this is a set of standard 10s, 10 to 46. We're going to put on a different gauge. So the compression on the neck is going to change. So this is going from 9.5 to 44. So it's kind of one of those intermediate sort of gauges. And we have to keep that into consideration. If you have a floating system, that's going to change everything down here, which is going to affect your action. Simple as that. Now, if this were a tune-o-matic system, such as on a Les Paul, or what's the alternative? Adjust-o-matic, different names for the same component. That's simply a matter of raising or lowering the posts. First thing we're going to do is give it a good clean. By the way, this thing has a nice set of locking tuners on it. I'm just going to go over some of the finer points of the instrument. Beautiful top on it. It's a laminate, but it looks great and it's been well applied. The bridge is very solid. It's very, very well made. I think these instruments sell for in the range of $750 US. Really good components, 22 fret neck. Nice abalone style inlays. I'm not sure if they're genuine abalone or not, but some very, very super nice features. The frets are well polished, roasted maple neck. One thing I want to mention is the fretwork. The stopgap to any really nice playing instrument is going to be the fretwork. If the frets are uneven, or need attention, you will never get beyond a certain point. That is, you'll never get that maximum playability you would get from a totally level and even playing field. So that's part of the process. It's kind of, think of it like a sub-listing, and right away you'll notice that there is evidence of some fretwork having been done here. And I took my Music Nomad fret rocker here and did a quick test, and yeah, I found some inaccuracies, let's say. But I'll say this as an additive: when it comes to setting up instruments, I let the instrument dictate its limits. It's like people. Either you're easy to get along with or you're not. Simple as that. Why don't you understand? Anyway, as far as this instrument goes, the first string measures 0.07 inches at the 12th fret, and the sixth string measures 0.08 at the 12th fret. And relief, when measured from the first fret to somewhere around the neck joint, anywhere here is going to be fine because this is a stable area. But usually I want to kind of midpoint that. And at the 7th, 8th fret, 9th fret area, which is the center of that, we have a measurement of 0.008 inches. So that's where we're at. Where we're going to wind up is a matter of making it happen and recording the results. Now here's an interesting situation. I'm going to take a moment and make a point of something. So this first string here is a little stuck. This is a 1.5 millimeter hex driver, and I'll just pop that down the hole and that thing is done. Comes right out. There's ways to get them out. So that's good to go. While we're here, we are going to check our neck for level. There we go. So, still got some rocking. It's still rocking, man. Okay, so here's our polished frets and new strings on, 9.5 to 44. So that's a few pounds lighter compared to what was on there, which were 10s. The neck is nearly dead straight. There's a tiny little gap there using the G string. And we're actually going to cut the nut using this measurement, because that's going to give us a little buffer by the time we get other things taken care of. If we look at the condition of the first fret for string height coming off the nut, there's still lots of air there. Okay, all the slots have been cut. So the nut is, I would say, almost taken care of. Very close. And you can see there's still pretty appreciable air at the first fret. If we take the, say the third string, and we press that down, there's a good bit of relief happening there, as you can see. Okay, it's still very nearly dead straight, but this is the test right here. Okay, you see the distance, you see that gap of light right there. Compare that to when I press it down, considerably less. Okay, I'll give you a little hint on something that's a lot of people don't realize about nuts and zero frets, and that is a properly cut nut should act like a zero fret. The next step is going to be, we're going to go straight for the bridge and see where we can get that winding up. Because this is a 2-point bridge, I want to make sure that this bridge plate is level with the body, because there's tons of adjustment room with the individual saddles, and the final height of the bridge plate should be enough to have a little bit of a back pull, depending on how the user likes it. I usually go for about a full tone, you know, and it's just wiggle room. For most people, it's wiggle room. That's pretty much it. So the way I'm going to do this is just a regular old screwdriver. Of course, I can use the bar, but this is convenient. Okay, I'm just going to check this and see. Okay, it's loose on the bass side, so I'm going to hit up my friend Salvador here and throw a 3mm turn driver on that, and how does that work? That's pretty nicely balanced. It was actually really good from the get-go, but I like to get a little fussy. That should be just fine. The next step will be refining the outer strings. We'll determine what the radius is. I can look it up and all that, but I got gauges. You know, sometimes the manufacturers are not as transparent as they could be with their dimensions. In other words, it's not that they're lying, it's just that they're not as accurate as they could be. So it's best to have your, you know, don't take things for granted and measure to make sure. Okay, so what I saw there was too much light on the treble side. which is a bit awkward, but a pretty good match for 12 until the first couple strings or so. And then I saw the light. Don't worry, this doesn't hurt the guitar or the strings or anything like that. You just gotta be real careful. So this is a 10. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of light through the middle. So we have inconsistencies. At the end of the day, given a chance or choice between a 10 or 11, or sorry, 10 or 12 inch radius, I'm going to work with a 10 and temper it with a 12. And this is very common. Sometimes you just don't get consistent radii on instruments. Now I'm just gonna eyeball the height of the top string, the 6th string. And I'll give you a read on that for your benefit shortly. And I'm doing the same on the treble side. This is a 1.5 millimeter driver. Okay, that's not too bad. These are fairly high frets, so there's plenty of room for digging, but it is starting to fret out a little bit there. So we're going to go back up. I always look at the forward edge of the saddle to make sure that it's in line. It's not like this or like that. It's in line with the plane of the fretboard. Oh, by the way, these are still on for a reason. Okay. Super tip. These are locking tuners. Never chop the strings until you're absolutely at the very end of the setup process, because stuff happens. Simple as that. Okay. When they're cut and you got to make an adjustment where they got to come off, or you got to do something where it's not nice. Okay. Good. So that seems to be copacetic. So right now the bass side is a little bit higher than the treble side, which is where we like it. For our benefit here, keep in mind gravity is giving us a little assist here in terms of adding some air there, but we're going to be pretty close. We're going to be pretty close. Let's see what we can come up with. 12th fret is 0.055 on the 6th string, and 1st string is 0.05. So there's not much difference between the two sides. I might bring the bass side up just a tad, because the 6th string likes room to do its thing. Just so we're into 6. So now 6 on the top, 5 on the bottom. That's 0.060 inches on the top, 0.050 inches on the bottom. Now the next step is going to be setting the radius. So I've set the outside strings, okay? That sets our minimum action on the treble side and bass side. And then I used the 10-inch radius gauge to set the radius at right close to the saddles. Okay, anywhere up here and a little bit of pressure and you're going to get false readings. So tight to the saddles, maybe a 1/4 inch, 6 mil ahead, and a little bit of ring on the 4th string there. And then this is the 12, okay? As I said, I was going to temper it. Now it's more the E string. So, but the comparative sizzle as we go between the two of them is okay. This is where our bridge wound up. plate is relatively flush to the surface. There's about a tone bend on the back end, so you can raise the pitch of the G string about a tone. And one of my favorite things to try to do is to get that bass side saddle, that is the 6-string saddle, as in line with the strings as I can, all things considered. Now, in order to perfect that, I would have to raise it, the 2 posts, a couple fractions, and then readjust everything. But this is fine. It really is. Those little grub screws, as long as they don't infringe on your playing, you know, they don't feel, as long as these don't feel uncomfortable, and that's like pretty minimal. So where do we go from here? Well, the strings have had an initial stretch. It actually plays pretty good at the moment. The nut is cut great so far. The bridge is set great so far. The last link in the chain is the amount of relief. And rather than playing it through the amp and, you know, hearing how it responds, I'm gonna feel it out. And that actually feels really, really nice. Pardon me while I get some light on the patient here. I would say that that's somewhere around 2 thou, which is ridiculous. But it's not bad. You know, it feels fine. The thing is it gonna buzz? Depends on how you play and stuff like that. I know the player, I know the fellow who owns it. He's a relatively light touch, but he'll bash occasionally. And he likes, you know, a comfortable setup. Dual action truss rod, that's about 5 thou now. And the end result will be, does it feel right? Does it feel spongy? Or does it feel comfortable? Is the nut working? Is the bridge working? That is, are the strings, if the bridge is a bit too high for the relief, then the strings, of course, are gonna seem a little bit too high. I don't see any appreciable difference in the string height here. Down here, here's another tip. Most truss rods, with very few exceptions, are very active more towards the end of the neck here, okay? So from here, say through here, okay? Down here, not so much. The exceptions being Taylors and PRSs. Their truss rod systems are sweet. The whole instrument is organic and responds to the slightest little movement. They are really thoroughbreds and very well executed. Okay, so where does this wind up in terms of the nut? And we've seen the footage from all of that beforehand, and I'm going to leave that exactly where it is. It hasn't moved so much that I have to address that again, which is great, because if you think about it, if the neck falls in or gets more relief, the strings from the nut are going to start to rise like this, and I illustrated that earlier, and you'll start to get more and more air down here. How this balances out for the whole instrument is a matter of not committing to one piece of the system from the get-go. Get close, get close, get close, and then dial it in, and then that way you give yourself some leeway, some room for error, you know, some insurance and stuff like that, always. But this is more, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much done. Of course, there's the intonation to check. I will double check the cut at the very, very, very end and the very last step once I balanced out the pickups. played it out, stretched it out, all that good stuff, is I'll chop that. I'll give it a haircut. So in summary, we changed the strings. We had some issues with the frets. Without having a level playing field, you will never get the action you want or deserve, but you have to know how to deal with that. Then the three components, the three major components that bring the whole thing together is the nut, the bridge, and relief. When all those things work together, you should have the best playing instruments you can possibly achieve. And it's a matter of trial and error, but I hope you got something out of that. Anyway, to wrap it up, this feels great. I'm gonna give it a little noodle. Anyway, my name is Steve. This is GuitarNiche. Thank you so much for watching and putting up with my shenanigans, okay? And yeah, as always, play loud, have fun, have a great day.